anijaba 7.1 metric tons of gold bought by GoldBod this year were refined in Ghana, according to the Chief Executive Officer Adema GoldBod, Sammy Gyamfi Esquire.
By February, this was only for 2 months. By March this year, the domestic gold purchase program was brought to an end. I hear people say that now domestic gold purchase program has been transferred to GoldBod. That is not what we are doing. The domestic gold purchase program has ended. It was a Bank of Ghana program. It has ended. In March 2026, on the back of the GANRAP approved by Parliament, the GoldBod began to now fully implement a statutory mandate. And under this mandate, it is not paid any fee by the Bank of Ghana. So that is the history of fees. So when you hear that somebody is saying that the Bank of Ghana is making losses because of GoldBod fees, he doesn't understand what he's talking about.
The Sammy Gyamfi, CEO of GoldBod, I say IMF and Can Nasem publication be a new artist. AMPP for no, and I say Omwanga create news. And I say the IMF for now can say be a Ghana for Ebenya GD Kese and I say Omonzo money credibility more.
It is not a few times you just we implemented this and we have made a profit of this, a profit of that. You ask yourself, so if you could make a profit of the 75 million Ghana cedis that you are talking about, why do you allow Bank of Ghana to incur a loss of 22 billion Ghana cedis on your behalf?
Sammy Gyamfi, sa brantie ni omuka se omboade. But oya abrantie a wanya ni chance no. Onye adwuma no ntwen de obetumi ye. Na wo ntwen sisi a wo pese mubu ni 9. Na mo friend no iPad 2.5 billion de ben. Na dabre MPP mreso. Mo to me call G loan without parliamentary approval. Mo to me raise bonds who Abena Osei-Asare. Economy a good from say no. Who can home? Now we are Deputy Minister of Finance.
Yeah. Say I'm pass Bank of Ghana and the GoldBod. Or more than 1.7 billion. And I say Scanobi in Sakobuma. I see him. But one thing I will not to relate from Abena Osei-Asare. Message is the last person I can accountability as more Ghana as okay. And shame him sir, and yes, like meaning any problem there. Until 1 is 97 million go to $7 million go to get it minano. Shut up. Who onya deputy finance minister Anna Kenofurata. Kojo Oppong Nkrumah, Afenyo and Abena Osei-Asare to invite me to Parliament and see if they will have their reputation intact. Where is Sammy Gyamfi Esquire, the Chief Executive Officer Edema GoldBod. Sammy Gyamfi wakofabo. Odia semaba. Good news kakra. Ntakwa kakra. Clarification kakra. Ba minim ana Kojo Oppong Nkrumah wa mini Sammy Gyamfi sa. Ba Sammy Gyamfi ade omo. Oso Oppong Nkrumah. Afenyo-Markin and Abena Osei-Asare. So most of my radio, we invite our Parliament. At the end of the day, we be good money Obetimai and I won't mean ye. At the end of Sammy Gyamfi, I headache. I don't mind people for this. Then as Sammy Gyamfi, I people for now. As a GoldBod or Debiano, as omote center free. Air transfer music problem beaba. Then and Sammy Gyamfi. But 7.1 metric tons of gold bought by GoldBod this year were refined in Ghana. At Ghana refinery, finally, all gold, 7.1 metric tons of gold. Refinery of Ghana, yeah. Adamus mining concession, the Lands and Natural Resource Minister, Yimano Kofi Amabwa, said Ghana are taking over. So when you had Ghana taking over, they say no Ghana as a country, Adamus mining concession, and you know, as you know, fragadam, or more boy, you would do more yadi back. But Sammy Gyamfi says 7.1 metric tons of gold. I told no Ghana Hanum. Nina Gold Coast refinery friends refinery Adaroma any Royal Gold Refinery Adaroma Royal Ghana Gold Refinery Adaroma nti Nina refinery no Ghana. How great is the news for you? So when you join you heavy, catch them comment section I say, oh you new subscribe it like ceremonial so any it didn't about max billion. I will naked to old book address. To watch them from room from ansem that near consem ya so. Sammy Gyamfi said finally hey my baby said she don't love me, she don't know what I'll go do. And I need about 7.1 metric tons of gold bought by GoldBod this year were refined in Ghana, according to the Chief Executive Officer Dema GoldBod, Sammy Gyamfi Esquire. Eti Abrantian says, "Yeda na Ghana, the John Dramani Mama Bosha of say, I say, oh, who the entire Ghana ebe exporting real good, maybe." And me also says the same. Sammy Gyamfi in the GoldBod, I shall say, omoye investigation, and you should move hefa and even a better refinery. After hard days of work, Sammy Gyamfi Equifani Gold Coast Refinery. And no Ghana be say percentage woman. At the same time, we percentage in everywhere. Senke di gold be ko Dubai, India. Na yakwa refinery no etwa. It is our cost na be extra cost no etwam. Aside that, na you sell some of your gold no raw. In terms of value na was no na wo fom pa. Ndi sika na enya kra ye ni age. GoldBod emails skills ni sha na nye sika Ghana ehia no ehia sika gare sika boto sika diamond eti eno nti ye ne Gold Coast Refinery as a contract say o ma refine 1 metric tons of gold e di amaye friends 1 tons of gold every week eno no actually finance minister ebeka say ye van go to eno achi Sammy Gyamfi ene the GoldBod team ene the board as I say no you be here ba kwasa beka Gold Coast Refinery ho e go for Royal Ghana Gold Refinery so e ba ye omo so e ba ye am so be to adwuma no so ntie na 7.1 metric tons of gold Ghana GoldBod etoye every Ghana hano according to Sammy Gyamfi just say ni na no Ghana ha ne nane no Ghana ha ya ne de value for the accounting na yekoton a isika nkon isika no enye ti se banti a koton we adane gare de ohia ne sugar ene ye to de din kwa na ya adane kivo gare ne se ade no oto yare Mr. Rochopo ya ye bibia kudi ne ko honto enti sana ne Ghana ye gold no akwakoye na Sammy Gyamfi wie ye no ane asi oh ene ma ya ade na ma ya ade a adenti na GoldBod according to the IMF muguso amoboka left right center esima boka about 2 billion and I say I will not respond to IMF. They have not said the GoldBod has made a loss. The losses they are talking about is the losses made by Bank of Ghana.
By February, this was only for 2 months. By March this year, the domestic gold purchase program was brought to an end. I hear people say that now domestic gold purchase program has been transferred to GoldBod. That is not what we are doing. The domestic gold purchase program has ended. It was a Bank of Ghana program. It has ended. In March 2026, on the back of the GANRAP approved by Parliament, the GoldBod began to now fully implement a statutory mandate. And under this mandate, it is not paid any fee by the Bank of Ghana. So that is the history of fees. So when you hear that somebody is saying that the Bank of Ghana is making losses because of GoldBod fees, he doesn't understand what he's talking about. Because these are fees that are not free money, number one. And we are talking about a total of 0.75%. And so if what the IMF says is anything to go by, and I'm not in the position to respond to them because they have not said the GoldBod has made a loss, so I will not respond to them. They said the losses they are talking about is a loss made by Bank of Ghana, right? Now, it's for the Bank of Ghana to address that. Now, they claim that that loss is 17% of the value of gold the Bank of Ghana bought in 2025. Assuming that is true, how does a fee of 0.758% reduce to 0.6 and further to 0.35 responsible for that? And when that fee predates the GoldBod, and when that fee at all material times is known as part of cost, then that can never be an issue of losses, because In the trading of a commodity, profit is a function of selling price minus cost price. So if you know that I'm buying commodity X at 10 cedis and my fee is 0.6 or percent or 0.75%, that is part of your cost. You ensure that you sell the commodity above that so that you make profit. That fee, which is approved by Parliament, not introduced by Sammy Gyamfi and the Gold Board, that fee of 0.5 negotiated by the XY regime cannot be the reason for any losses. And it is important that we set that record straight.
Sammy,
Now on the issue of financing.
Sammy,
No,
can you
Sammy,
Yes.
hear me?
let's come here.
Yes.
Let's come
Yeah,
here.
I wanted to
So,
dwell. I wanted to maybe touch base a little bit, so or like maybe expand a little bit on the fees, right?
Mhm.
And I'm wondering if some of this some of this confusion, right, was because it wasn't clear from the beginning that 2025 was basically a transition year for the gold board, right? And it was basically taking over the original arrangement. I think a lot of the explanation were after the fact, right? That, oh, we are taking over the original arrangement because we are still setting up and all of that, right? Because I think when I read the Gold Board Act, right, I see that Gold Board is doing everything from end to end, right? And so not necessarily being a service provider for the Bank of Ghana. It makes sense that in 2025 being setting up, it was a transition year. But do you feel that it was maybe that communication wasn't clear from the beginning, right? So that
No, it was
yes.
very clear. It was very clear. You see, if you don't have information, I always maintain that the right thing to do is to ask. I have gotten a lot of RTIs and I've responded to all RTIs. Suleiman Abrahama will tell you a lot of these institutes and CSOs, I make sure that we always do that. And our act is perhaps one of the most stringent when it comes to transparency. And I think you, Alfred, you even make that point. And so we publish almost everything. Sometimes I come under accusations that I am overly transparent. I'm publishing too many things, and it ends up being, spinned and misconstrued and manipulated against us for mischief purposes. So I don't think that was a problem because, Alfred, I was appointed as acting managing director of PMMC on 22nd January 2025. I went there with the main objective given to me by His Excellency the President to go and see to the establishment of the Gold Board. Okay, you cannot establish an agency in one day. And we, with the help of stakeholders and Parliament, were able to get the Gold Board Act passed in record time on the 29th of March 2025. By the 2nd of April, the President assented it. So now Gold Board came into being. But when you have formed a new organization and given it this huge mandate of being the sole buyer of gold in Ghana, the national assayer, the sole exporter, the one that must promote and ensure value addition, that is the one that must fight smuggling, the one that must deploy a task force at entry and exit points to make sure that we control smuggling, the one that must promote land reclamation and sustainability initiatives, ensure traceability, value chains. You need a whole new organization, workers, logistics, and everything. You cannot establish that organization overnight. Okay, so we needed time. My minister always says, I mean, you need to walk before you crawl and before you run. So let's get the basics right. So after 2nd of April, we occupied ourselves with putting in place the necessary institutional, measures to make sure that we have Gold Board.
nti Sammy Gyamfi CEO of GoldBod ɛsɛ IMF nka n'asɛm publication bi eni wɔte saa ɛyɛ MPP foɔ no ɛna ɛsɛ ɔmo ankasa create ɔmo news ɛna ɛsɛ de IMF foɔ na aka sɛ de bɛyɛ Ghana foɔ ɛbɛnya gyidie kɛseɛ wɔ mu ɛna sɛ o ɔmo nso ɔmo ni credibility ti yɛntwa mmɔ IMF nkasa nka hwee na emom no sɛ ka bi mpo da hɔ a ɛyɛ GoldBod ɛyɛ Bank of Ghana the operational cost ɛyɛ ɔno no ka ɛnyɛ ɔno ɛyɛ GoldBod ho ɔmo ne ka bia nti yɛn forget yɛn twambɔ hwinsi na ɛno na the chairperson of the Public Accounts Committee and former Deputy Finance Minister mayi honorable nafiri ho Abena Osei-Asare madam ɔse wa calling for President John Dramani Mahama So on the money accountability over the reported $1.7 billion loss incurred by the Bank of Ghana through its dealings with the GoldBod, and was cited by the IMF. According to her, the matter requires thorough investigation, stressing that the amount involved is significant and could have been used to support other sectors of the economy to create jobs and improve livelihood.
Issues pertaining to the GoldBod, the Bank of Ghana, and the funded FX forward sale. I'm delighted that the IMF has brought this to the fore in its article for consultation, the recent one that they issued in August. And according to the IMF, it says that the domestic gold purchase program recorded losses to the tune of $1.7 billion US dollars. But if you would recall, the Bank of Ghana in their 2025 financial statement reported $214 million US dollars as the loss. This loss of 1.7 billion is equivalent to 22 billion Ghana cedis, and that is 1.5% of our GDP. And this same 22 billion Ghana cedis was the amount that was used to salvage the banks, the customers, the 1.2 million depositors who had lost their funds as a result of the banking issues. So clearly, you see the quantum of monies that are going waste. 22 billion Ghana cedis loss. And this same equivalent of 22 billion was used to save 1.2 million depositors. So that is why we are concerned. That is why we are talking about it, that just one entity using 22.5 billion as a loss. The Minister of Health is complaining about the fact that he needs 6 billion Ghana cedis to recruit nurses. And here we are, 22 billion Ghana cedis going down the drain, when we could have used that amount of money to support the recruitment exercise at the Ministry of Health to enable the many nurses who are currently at home, to enable them to be employed. And for this one, it's going to be a win-win. The 22 billion, government is not going to recover. But if they had spent 6 billion out of the 22 billion, you will employ the nurses, unemployment rates will come down, and these same nurses will help you generate more revenue because they are going to pay income taxes. So this is where our concern is, and this is where we are coming from. 22 billion Ghana cedis going down the drain, when just a fraction of it could have been used to support the Ministry of Health to recruit the number of nurses they are talking about. Another issue is this. BOG recorded 214 million US dollars as the loss. IMF comes, IMF is privy to all the data and everything and says, no, the loss is not 214 million dollars as recorded, but 1.7 billion dollars. I'm asking the accounting firm that audited Bank of Ghana, I want to hear from them on this. Because, so how did they treat the difference of close to 1.4 billion? How was it treated? That it cannot be seen in their financial statement for BOG to declare that they only made a loss of 214 million Ghana cedis, and then the IMF comes and says, no, that loss on GoldBod is 1.7 billion. So I'm also calling out the accounting firm that audited Bank of Ghana. They should come clean. We want to hear from them. We need an explanation of how they treated the difference of 1.4 billion. That is very, very important, because here their credibility is at stake. And when you look at what attributed to the losses, I find it a bit hard to believe, but clearly that is what happened. Let me state that IMF said that these are assay fees paid to the GoldBod. They pay fees, and then we end up making a loss of 1.7 billion. These are discounts applied to gold sold to the off-takers. Even the small gold sellers around, they don't sell gold and make losses. Yet we give off-takers discounts. I don't understand. We are expecting GoldBod not to insult, elevate the conversation, give us explanation, because it's of concern to everybody. If you can make a loss of 22 billion, when 6 billion of that loss can be used to employ more than 10,000 nurses, clearly you have a case to tell the people of Ghana, respectfully. And as a result of this, we all know that the negative position of BOG increased from 58 billion to 93 billion. A huge gap, close to about 40 billion. And all government could do in the mid-year budget was to give them a paltry sum of 5 billion Ghana cedis. You ask yourself, you give Bank of Ghana that you have helped to make a loss of close to 40 billion, just 5 billion. And then 2 working days before the financial year ends, you give one entity, not an entity that takes care of our money, not an entity that cuts across. You give that entity 4.5 billion Ghana cedis. You ask yourself, all the ministries, departments and agencies, ask them if the budget that was voted for them for parliament for the year 2025, if they had 100% of their budget. No ministry, not even ministries that are pursuing government policy. It didn't happen. You ask Free SHS, you ask Ministry of Agric, you ask Ministry of Roads, you ask Ministry of Interior. They are all managing very important government policies. You ask them whether their budget, their full budget, was given to them at the end of 2025, let alone just 48 hours to the end of the year. It's never happened. And so if we are, GoldBod is happy saying that, they made a profit of 909 million Ghana cedis. We all should be thinking, if that money wasn't given at the dawn of time, the huge losses GoldBod would have been making, coupled with the huge loss the Bank of Ghana has already incurred on their behalf. President Mahama, we are asking you to call for proper and further investigations into what is happening at GoldBod. I am temporarily relieved that at least Bank of Ghana from 1st of July 2026 is no more spending on GoldBod as it used to be. But then the program that GoldBod is implementing now ought to be brought to Parliament, because Parliament approved their budget. It ought to be brought to Parliament. It's an entity where government also spends money, and that is why the Auditor General audits them. They ought to bring the program to Parliament to see whether they will be implementing the program as they have stated. And then from time to time, they also need to report how far they have come to Parliament. It is not a few times you just, we implemented this and we have made a profit of this, a profit of that. You ask yourself, so if you could make a profit of the 75 million Ghana cedis that you are talking about, why do you allow Bank of Ghana to incur a loss of 22 billion Ghana cedis on your behalf? Clearly, we ought to look into this. This is not about GoldBod coming out with insults. We want them to elevate the discussion. Tell us their side of the story. The insults will not let the $1.7 billion loss go away. It will not let it go away. Rather, it will tell on you the kind of leader you are. Come forth. Tell us if there's something, some support that government needs to, come up with to help you manage the place to make profits throughout the year. You should let us know. But so we expect the conversation to be elevated. We expect some transparency. We expect some accountability, and not contradiction in numbers as is being put out there. So, President Mahama, somewhere last year, you engaged the SOEs, and then you mentioned that SOEs that are not making profits or SOEs that are not thriving, you either close them down or you merge them. So we want you to walk the talk. Look into GoldBod. Look into the losses that they have incurred so far and see how best you can salvage the situation. We want you to walk the talk and help save the little resources that we have. Already, you've introduced more than 8 new taxes and it's still not yielding the revenue numbers that you want. So if there's an opportunity to save some money and use it in other equally important places, we are all for it. And we ask that you do so. Thank you.
Sure. Say I'm part of Bank of Ghana and the GoldBod. Or more than 1.7 billion. And I say, Scanobi in Sakobuma. I see him. But one thing I will not to relate from Abena Osei-Asare. Message is the last person aye ka accountability as mo Ghana so ka bi enhwe manim sa enye se bidwa no like menini ni problem bia until one is 97 million go to $97 million go to cathedral mina no shut up wo onya ono na deputy finance minister under Kenofurata onka ho no PDS deal no mo sign SML deal no mo sign mamem masa me John nye na photo mum endis for mobile mun timi ntie ne ana enza go we parliament za kwedi say public accounts committee baby ye go bu akonta no we no timi bu akonta ono ne de wabu awie as a deputy finance minister dia no no akonta be no wabu a kire ye unless I can Kenofurata the ono ye bia no nkan obi so nkan obi that she knows nothing about the job and you want participate yes sir Ghana like agro any so you serious country bianca ye pe Kenofurata nya nkan the deputy aso na daada na je oni ani sifu oni mo na agro ti moja no life amano ano no ehu papa Ghana esir kantata ne toso deputy finance minister, former deputy finance minister rather, under Kenofurata. Ono demand accountability call for president. Did you call Nanado to investigate the $97 million na need to go minimum? Did you call Nanado to investigate the PDS deal, the SML deal? Emumpa Ghana and the democracy na me boy. Ana me boy. Abena Osei-Asare, the former deputy finance minister under Kenofurata. Ono pe accountability. Yen wan say nambe. Yen wan say anambe. Oh dabi. Nanka Italia so yen wan man che. We ya jana life na ma no. Ana o ye tese obetima bia na aka de obeso ka bia. Yet oni ehwe no. Kojo Oppong Nkrumah, Afenyo and Abena Osei-Asare to invite me to parliament and see if they will have their reputation intact. Where Sammy Gyamfi Esquire, the chief executive officer, Edimo GoldBod. Papa no abrante no tese na no ate anotilewa anopolowa oka tese oka na waka tese onim de oka was it why ready so Oppong Nkrumah na Afenyo-Markin and Abena Osei-Asare say GoldBod adeka no maboka oh no problem we invite you to parliament say come na siso obi etwa na Ghana fu na hwe omuwie na answer questions ni wi a so omubede so anya omani ani omanim apagya dia hwe nipa desani a aningwase a beba omo so no ene a na mo na aningwase wa kwaba eno na nka omo sa beka we ade Sammy Gyamfi ka dia defend this GoldBod for the second time Kojo Oppong Nkrumah say so say omo sa boka no so omo moka first one omo de baaye ame beka bi atire omu na be pacho Kojo Oppong Nkrumah gaze wan gaze omo diska ene omo sa start bi Sammy Gyamfi say enye no kre na ono no onim Ose Sammy Gyamfi ose friends Afenyo-Markin oye bitter brother oye a say ya nyono wonimu say o tan ono Sammy Gyamfi no all because Sammy Gyamfi na mambo opposition di sa no mu hunu say Sammy Gyamfi na ama mambo opposition di za de be deal with Sammy Gyamfi ye be make sure say the life be on governable just ye be top pressure man am say Sammy Gyamfi mbu mai munyam brand ye non focus Sammy Gyamfi member parliament bia why member parliament bia na say edu say we wie sika you ko ne eyi ebia for ho ma be fa why enko parliament enko be bia onya mp onya member of parliament why omo time no ye nim amanfo no mu di nsem hunu o ma we mu amudi sika left right center one invite no enko be bia a distraction why focus on your job you waduma why you waduma na mo distract what it minim dia branch no wayo mo na wey broni kokko ma che ya fetiri gongon uni se enka ya na nka MPP for agro report Ghana ma IMF ya na mo report Ghana ama a friend say the dean of diplomatic corps ya na MPP for o ma report Ghana ma a friend say England and Wales a friend say lawyers association say get to the rubber secretary no the removed chief justice Nyensa Mfani Nsusubiu enye ya ne try letter koma Queen Elizabeth ene abrofo na hya se titwi joman ka se chire mu twi
Enyanum, good morning. Bonjour. Machin. Kola here. Despa. Michamo ewiase kasa ni na anopay enye boni. Enso ye boni. My imagine say me here active biom like me here videos. But nyama ba ku mienu nkoso yie mame. Enko yie mame. Kwasi asem ye koso no. Enye easy o. Hwe. Anopay me ntwi me no obi antwi manso. But enokre dia meka. Two things. Sammy Gyamfi ne anti galamsey demo. Sammy Gyamfi sa brantie ne omuka se ombo ade o chantro. Say na dia o kanu ni na anyentro. Enso enye propaganda. Ebia propaganda kakra wom. Na bebre ayampa. Ah, enti krofo first me to me respect omu MPP for mugumani masse. Mugumani masse. Me feri kura. Say, mpenifo pa to me wiasika millions and millions. Where you say, where you waji say, where you waji say, where you wawia say, where you waya. Radi nyankopon. Ena mun feri na wu Abena Osei-Asare. As a IPAC chairman and I said Jeben. Sammy Gyamfi yamanu 2.5 billion cedis budget. Nipa kro ni mini ntina dawo. Mini nkasa da. But oya abranti a wanya ni chance no. Oye adwuma no nkyɛn de obetumi ye. Na wo nkyɛn sisi a wo pese mo bu ni nan. Na mo friend o IPAC 2.5 billion de ben. Na dabre MPP mreso. Mo to me call G loan without parliamentary approval. Mo to me raise bonds who Abena Osei-Asare economy a good from say no. Who can home? Now we are deputy minister of finance. Shame on you. After we say yes, me nim ejuma bay na who to me here. And then who can home na economy ni collapse. A good for. Who ya mishikura. GoldBod enye nkati ton. Enye kokoni nkati ton. Eya hudie Ghana man sika koko ehudie. 2.5 billion so eya sika sen. Eya sika sen. Eswakura. Eya next time no munya mun yusu munyansa se ebia mi afi se mi suspect se nyansa dia wo wotrim no eswa. Se bi wo ho a eswa. Maminko anti galamsey demo. The worst galamsey I have ever witnessed in my life was under the MPP, under under the watch of Abu Jinapo. I had never witnessed anything as bad as that. Say dear me dear koso. Say a brusa dear. Yes, you can critique the government. Ube to me catch President John Mahama say, what shall your boss say 1, 2, 3, 4. But say ube koko ye demonstration say dabre ye MPP mreso no. My worse. Move to me. Look, I remember Joseph Wahin Edu. Now CEO of Cocoa Board. Oka adentina debia oni omuko adentina muse cocoa farms. She say cocoa farms no. For DCEs, MDCs near de. Omu to me, friend will threaten the Pakrono. They could call him and tell him that he should not even step the crowd. Say omunjai ne omunjai china. Afina mukasa mudia muka ho muko ye anti-galamsey demo munsani munaini na shim besin nai kwasia ay ade mube like mube bug Ghana man kwasia muka anti-galamsey mensusu musakum anunti da bia meka se muntu ma wachi ajako a ama onu ni Dr. Baumia ebuamu a mubeka odo bola dia mukotum odo gotan dia mukotum no mubeka Dr. Baumia ni wachi ajako kwa na omutumi epejamu efrisa gotan mu ya ni shikura
ose Sammy Gyamfi he focus ye waduma omo se waboka ose gold no enye nkateton he broni brother na no asesa no ose gold enye nkateton eya kudie am se he wo wetena Ghana home broni ni tree wa ye MPP rough what I say was Sammy Gyamfi masa kwada sunye ne kekabo so miensa fabi kura to na ase dada yi wani oda yankro mo ye ho na ma honto no muni ndo keka gas gold ne nkateton am say eyi yesi ma no ya da broni we de eche me de eti Sammy Gyamfi after say announce 7.1 metric tons of gold GoldBod toll free friends Ghana no ni na ya refine no e Ghana ha at the same time say make say at the most friends mining concession no according to the Lands and Natural Resources Minister Imano Gofia Mabo say as a modimadi na nkoyi na nsia no makusutu obi ho behwe no ma say omo license mu so community ni okay with them and Ghana take over Adamus mining concession in the ene Adamus mining concession nyomo de bio e belong to Ghana as a state, as a nation, as a country. Are you happy with that? So you happy? Catch me our comment section. Na say na Sammy Gyamfi minim the way MPP for Oppong Nkrumah Afenyo-Markin and even the former deputy finance minister under Afenyo-Markin and Abena Osei-Asare. Omu na say papa no diska. Omo diska. Enti GoldBod for me chim. Na den na Sammy Gyamfi or the aye MPP 43 Kojo Oppong Nkrumah any Afenyo-Markin. Say Abena Osei-Asare so den wa be kan. Den na Sammy Gyamfi or the yo. So when you catch me comment section na say gold concession na say ne mining concession na Ghana ya je for the most construction mining company so e oda catch me comment section na say 7.1 million metric tons a toye every Ghana you gold nkete small scale mining you know ene ya refani na wa o say ye ampa adwumadie be shem kina say amika say ye hanya mu hanya ti Ghana e say no officially ye to gold bia na e bit refine ni na Ghana ha woni age a catch me or comment section na say bonsam e ma Sammy Gyamfi ne rating ma me but DNT and MPP for tata this awaya omodan ye na esi we wie na we new subscribe like share ma onua eso enya bi enwe ni no e ba ko be max billion I will naked to the old oga trends macro bye bye.